I am Thomas Raber, and I am the most recent president of Beta Upsilon Chi fraternity.
Yeah, thanks for giving us some of your time. Here's the questions. What do you think are few most important qualities of a great leader, and how do you apply them to your role?
Yeah, so I think the most important quality, in my opinion, of a good, successful leader is humility. I think being able to, as a leader, humble yourself and put yourself in the position of the people that you're leading, and to really focus your efforts on serving the people that you're leading, is the most important way to lead a healthy and effective organization.
Okay. Um, how do you motivate and inspire your team, especially during challenging times?
That's a tough one, because a lot of people handle challenges very differently. So the most important thing, in my opinion, for a leader whenever going through challenges is to know the people that you're leading pretty intentionally, because some people respond to words of affirmation very well, and so they'll need a lot of encouragement when things get hard. But other people might not respond to that. Instead, they might respond better to just kind of leaving them alone for a little bit. And then once things cool off, then you can start getting a little more hands-on with them. So it really depends. It varies from person to person. So really get to know the people you're leading very well.
Okay. Um, what do you believe is the difference between a manager and a leader, and how do you balance both of the two dynamics?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think whenever I think of the word manager, I immediately just think of somebody who has strong organizational skills and pretty much purely is in charge of making sure people are in the right place at the right time, doing the right job. And I think it's a very necessary role. But I don't think they are inherently leaders just because they're managers. I think they have strong organizational skills and a good sense of um, placing people where they need to be. But a leader has that humility that I talked about earlier, where it's less about management and it's more about service. It's about serving the people that you're leading well.
Okay, good answer. How do you think your leadership style has evolved over time?
Oh, it's evolved quite a bit. I used to be a lot more of a people pleaser than I am now. I wanted to make sure that everybody was super happy all the time and everyone was uh, perfect sunshine and rainbows. But then, I realized that that's not possible. You can't please every single person all the time. There's going to be conflicts that arise. And you can't shy away from those conflicts because then you won't be able to make any progress. So, through conflict resolution and having to learn in times of challenge, I realized that, people can't always be, um, everything can't be perfect all the time. So you can't be too much of a people pleaser. You have to be able to confidently work through times of conflict so that you can right the ship in any waters. Um, and that's a tough thing, and I still struggle with that to this day. But I am a lot more confident now in times of conflict, and I think that's really helped me grow as a leader because, like I keep mentioning, leadership is often about service, about making sure that you're taking care of the people that you're leading, and you can't do that effectively if you ignore problems just to make people happy.
That's good. What was one leadership decision that you made that didn't go as planned, and how did you navigate through it?
Yeah, there was a time once where there was a bit of a repeated behavior issue in the fraternity, and it had happened with several people. And so, in order to course correct, knowing that it had been several people and not wanting to call anybody out specifically, I made a general announcement at the chapter meeting saying, "Hey, we've got this problem that's been going on, and I want to get to the bottom of it so we can put an end to it." And I thought that was going to be an effective way to do it because I didn't want to single anybody out. And I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that this is a problem that wasn't going to be tolerated anymore. But despite my efforts to not make anyone feel singled out, there were a couple people that did, and they came to me afterwards and expressed that they had wished that that was a private conversation instead of a chapter message. And so there are definitely some times when having more information is necessary because what I had been told was the problem was a smaller problem than it was made out to be. And so, because I didn't have as much information as I should have, I thought it was more people involved in the problem when in reality it was just one or two. And so, those guys felt really singled out whenever I made that announcement. So, that was my fault. But moving forward, I was able to address that a lot differently whenever situations like that arose.
Sounds good. How do you balance achieving team goals while fostering individual growth, and development?
I don't think team growth is really possible without individual development. You're only as strong as your weakest link, and we are only as good as a team as the individual members of the team. It's more than the sum of its parts, though. So you have to make sure that you're taking care of each individual person, making sure that they're able to grow and feel respected and valued. Because if you don't have everyone on board, if you guys aren't all running in the same direction, then you're not going to be as efficient as possible. You need to make sure that everybody is on board with the mission and everybody's super on fire for it. Everyone's really bought in and moving in the same direction. So, in order for the team to truly grow, you need to make sure that each individual is able to grow.
Okay. When it comes to managing, what are some of the ways that you're able to keep people satisfied with their job or task?
I think this kind of ties back into the like morale during challenging times questions. It really depends person to person. There's some people that when you're managing them, like you should take like a really hands-off approach because um, they might be a do-it-yourself kind of go-getter. And so you don't really need to intervene too much whenever you're managing them to make sure that they get a good job done. But there are other people where it might be a little bit better to, I don't want to say micromanage because nobody likes to be micromanaged, but there are people that need and even want more attention whenever they're trying to get their job done because they want to make sure they're doing things right. They need a little more affirmation. So being able to read the room and figure out what kind of leadership style each person needs is probably the most effective way to get that done.
Okay. What qualities do you believe are most important for someone to succeed under your leadership style?
Accountability for sure. I don't like excuses. That really frustrates me. I'm a really busy person, and so whenever I hear someone make the excuse like I don't have time, it really upsets me because like you can make time if it's something important to you. So I'd much prefer you to take accountability and say that's not a priority for me, or simply I don't want to. That's an answer that I would prefer to hear any day, other than I don't have time, because that's just an excuse. If it was a priority for you, you would make time. But and that same thing applies like when you make a mistake. Like I don't want to hear that it's someone else's fault. I don't want to hear that it was something else's fault. If you messed up and made a mistake, that's okay. I'm not going to be mad at you. But I'd prefer you to say, "Hey, I messed up. I did this. I could have done that better," or any number of things. Just taking accountability is super super important. That doesn't just go for the people under your leadership, but that goes for yourself as well. If you mess up, own it. Like I mentioned with the mistake I made with that chapter announcement, I owned that really quickly because like mentioned in that answer, I didn't quite have the full information because it had been misrepresented to me. But I didn't say that. I didn't make that excuse. I just said, "Hey, I messed up. I shouldn't have made that announcement the way that I did. I should have taken more care to approach it at an individual level, and that's my fault." And sometimes, as a leader, that kind of sucks because um, it feels a little isolating, but at the same time, um, if I'm expecting you to be honest, take accountability, and not make excuses, I mean, I absolutely better be held to the same standard.
Okay. When a person is being counterproductive, do you prefer to take a passive approach or connect them and take a more aggressive, direct head-on approach? Obviously situational, but
Yeah, I don't know if I like the word aggressive approach necessarily, but I definitely prefer to take a direct approach. I don't want to just sit and let things stew if something's not going right. I want to make sure that we can approach it head on. Um, I there's a movie quote that says lead, follow, or get out of the way. And I really love that because there's a lot of people that have the tools and the capabilities and are called to lead, and that's a great thing. Not everyone is called to lead. There are some people that are called to follow, and that's a great thing too. We need followers just as much as we need leaders. But for the people that aren't called to lead but don't want to follow, sometimes it's best to just get out of the way. Um, and I think when people are being counterproductive, it's really important to take a direct approach and sometimes even say to them like lead follow or get out of the way because then they might realize the gravity of the situation and think, oh shoot, like if I'm hindering the team right now, it's best if I just get out of the way, but I don't want to do that. And so it's a very easy way to course correct through a little bit of introspection.
okay. And lastly, with a sort of unbiased mindset, how do you think past people that have worked under you would rate your leadership style?
Mm, that's a good question. I think I'd like to think they'd rate it pretty well, but there are plenty of times that I made mistakes, like the one that I mentioned. So um, I definitely grew a lot throughout my presidency in the fraternity. So towards the beginning, I would say I would have rated mediocre. I was okay, but as it went on and as I developed as a leader and really found my footing, I think I improved my standing. I think they would say I was probably a good, not great leader.
Okay,
But I'm also a pretty harsh critic, especially of myself. So,
I think so. Okay, thanks again for your time. And that was good.